Welcome to How to Foster a Connection. My name is Jamie Smith, and I am a prevention specialist with the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Council of Delaware County, located on Main Street in Delhi, New York. We are a prevention agency focusing on life skills, and I'm really excited to bring this presentation to you today on how to foster a connection. How to foster a connection. I had to really think about this. Connection isn't always so easy. Humans are complicated, and I really had to think what are the needs of a human, and how can we nurture a connection, especially in challenging times when we are not face to face like we usually are. So I had a lot to think about in creating this presentation for you today. And I hope that as I present, you will be able to pull some real practical skills and great information from this and incorporate that into your life and into your own relationships. That is my hope for you as we move along in this presentation. And as you see on the screen, Brené Brown, if you're not familiar with Brené Brown, she is a professor, author, public speaker, and I stumbled across her quote here on connection, and it really struck a chord with me, and I decided to use this as the center of this presentation. And what Brené has to say about connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they can derive sustenance and strength from the relationship. So as you see, as we move forward in this presentation, you will see that I've pulled out some key words and put some emphasis on them. But first, I really wanted us to get a good foundation. And what I mean by that is we all are familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where we have our basic needs, our psychological needs, and then our self-fulfillment needs. Well, in order to thrive in life and have a good quality of life, we need connection. We can have our basic needs met and survive, but in order to thrive, we need connection. And so I have on here, connection is the essence of existence. Research shows us that healthy connections are vital in lowering our anxiety and depression, helps us regulate our emotions, leads to higher self-esteem and empathy, and can improve our immune system. And I used this brain state model from Dr. Becky Bailey. She is the founder of Conscious Discipline. And if you are in the education field, you might be familiar with some of her work on conscious discipline. And what this model shows us is very similar to the idea of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have our survival state, our emotional state, and our executive state. And what I found in researching connection is, in order to even have a healthy connection, we need to first establish safety. So safety is our first priority in forming a connection. And I really wanted to go over that with you today before we move into fostering a connection. If you look on the screen and you see survival state, when people do not have safety, it comes out in their behavior. And so it might look like hiding, fighting, surrender, physical reactions. And the message that is being portrayed here is, am I safe? So we know that when people do not feel safe, they might have some of these behaviors. And then in the emotional state, maybe you are dealing with a student or a child or even an adult who has really poor verbal reactions or back talks or sasses, or maybe even yells and loses their temper. What the message is saying is, am I loved? Am I connected? am I valued? So the need here is connection. And so you can really see that in order to have connection, you first need safety. And then when you combine safety with a healthy connection, when someone feels safe and valued, you're better able to solve problems. And we are in relationships, naturally, you're going to have conflicts and problems. But it's really challenging to solve a problem when you first do not have safety and connection. So I really just want to take the time to emphasize the importance of some of the things that we already kind of need to be working on before we can foster a healthy connection. I also wanted to introduce to you, if you have never heard of this, this is the 5 guiding principles to trauma-informed practice, also known as 5 guiding values. And if you do not have values established yet, I highly recommend that you look into the values that I have on the screen here and see how they can be incorporated into your own life. And also maybe if you're part of a work environment or a team, how you can use these values as a guide in your workspace. And those 5 guiding principles are creating an atmosphere of safety, trustworthiness, collaboration, choice, and empowerment. Safety, am I or are we creating a physically and emotionally safe environment? Trustworthiness, can people trust me? Can we trust each other? And are we setting clear boundaries? Collaboration, are we respectfully working together? Choice, autonomy. Am I respecting that people have the right to have different values and interests than my own? And empowerment. Focusing on strengths and empowering others to build on those strengths. Now, all of those values are very important into fostering connections. But again, as you can see, safety is number 1 on the list. And that's what we're going to focus on in the next slide. How do we build safety? Being able to feel safe with other people is probably the single most important aspect of mental health. Safe connections are fundamental to meaningful and satisfying lives. I just read the quote on the screen. Building safety takes time, but it's doable. And what are some of the things that we need to be doing in order to build that safety? I created this visual for you so that we can kind of see some core key things that we need to incorporate into our relationships in order to build and foster safety. And the first one I put is a safe environment. Are we respecting physical space with each other? And are we expressing ourselves nonviolently? If you are someone who is hot-tempered and you know that about yourself, knowing that you sometimes have to walk away to cool down before you can have a conversation. Number 2 on there, I put trust. Giving someone the benefit of the doubt, accepting each other's words. Communication. Do you have clear communication and assertive communication? So clear and assertive, not aggressive. Support. Are you offering encouragement to that person? Are you valuing their opinions? Honesty. Communicating openly and truthfully. Cooperation. Asking, not expecting, or making decisions together. I have 2 daughters, and we like to call this win-win situations, when we each get something out of the situation. And that is working together. I get something and you what I want, and you get what you want. And that doesn't always happen, but when it happens, my kids we'll shout out win-win because, we were able to work together and still get what we wanted out of the situation. And accountability, admitting our mistakes and accepting responsibility for our behavior and our actions and our values. There are more ways that we can continue to build safety with each other, but those were the ones that came to mind for me. Based on what's important to me and my values, you can see that they're reflected here. I recognize in order to feel like I am fostering a healthy connection with someone and building a safe environment for someone, I need to be mindful and conscious of, am I portraying these things? And is the other person also trying to work on building that safety as well? So we have our foundation of safety. We know that we need that firm foundation in order to then foster this connection. So how do we foster this connection? Well, if you think back to what Brené Brown's quote said about connection, is that people want to feel seen, right? We want people to see us. When you feel seen, and when you show others that they are seen, it shows that you care. So on here, I have one small act of caring can turn someone's day around. Sometimes it's not that complicated to show someone that you care. And again, I just wrote down some things that I know shows others that I care, and vice versa. Sometimes just simply saying, I see you, is showing someone that you care about them. Sometimes what happens is we find ourselves on a deserted island all by ourselves, isolated and alone. And we are not sure how to bridge that gap back to connecting with others. In my life, when I have been on that island and someone has said, I see you, I see your efforts, I see you struggling, I see you, whatever it is, that was my bridge back to connecting and to getting the help I needed. So sometimes just saying, I see you, can turn someone's day around, turn someone's life around. In American culture, eye contact is a very big thing of showing people that you have their undivided attention. Noticing others' efforts. A lot of times we are really good at just giving praise for someone's performance, but are we taking the time to tell them that we notice their efforts? We saw you every day practice hard, whether it's your child who is in theater and they did a great performance. Are you just saying, hey, great job on the performance? Or are you saying, wow, all that hard work, I saw all that hard work that you put into that. That really paid off for you, right? So it's just taking it a step further and saying, not only am I proud of you for what you're doing, but it's saying I'm recognizing the efforts that you're putting into this. Constructive criticism. I do a presentation on the art of criticism. And as we all know, criticism is hard to take. But if it's presented as constructive, and the way that you deliver it is constructive, the way that another person can receive that could be that person cares about me and sees potential in me, or wants to see me improve on something, and is willing to take the time because they care to help me improve on that skill or whatever the issue is. Being thoughtful. Maybe you're in a meeting with others and you're getting up to go get some water. Would anyone like a water bottle? I'm going to get some water. Someone needs their hands are full and, can I get the door for you? Sometimes just those simple things are telling someone, I see you. This one can be more challenging, and that is recognizing when someone may be struggling. And in a pandemic, when we are not face-to-face as much as we usually are, that adds an extra layer of challenges. So maybe you need to take the time to think of someone in your life that you haven't reached out to in a while, or that you have this feeling that maybe they're struggling, and reach out to them and ask them, how are you really? Sit and think about that. Is there someone in your life right now that you realize you haven't been putting the efforts into really seeing them? How can you show that person that you see them? It might be a suggestion that we have on this screen right here, or maybe you know exactly what you need to do, and it's not on the screen, but it's just something that you know you need to do to show them that you care and that you see them. I want to bring up this idea of observation versus judgment. Now, it is important to remember that we are limited in our understanding of another person's life by our own range of experience. So what I mean between observation and judgment is sometimes our judgment can turn into judging, because our judgment comes from our own range of experience, comes from our ego, and it happens when we form an opinion. Now, judgment has its place, and there's times that we need to form an opinion to make a decision. But what can also happen is we can confuse our judgments with reality. And so I personally have been challenging myself to practice observation, because what observation can do for us is it's a neutral act of taking in information. It's observing and noticing things around you and accepting them as they are. And what this does is it allows us to stay present. Sometimes we operate out of our ego, which can be very emotional. And then it becomes really fuzzy and hard to see and observe what's really going on. So I would like you to ask yourself, when fostering a connection with someone, have I been coming from a place of just observation and noticing behaviors or certain patterns of someone? Or have I projected something onto someone else and came from trying to maybe make a judgment call, but turned into judging? Just even having the awareness of this is a good thing. So we established that people want to feel seen, but we also know that people want to feel heard. And the question to you and to myself is, are we listening? I love this quote. It says, "For true listening, no matter how brief, requires tremendous effort. You cannot truly listen to anyone and do anything else at the same time." And my children remind me of this because they quiz me and will say, "Mom, what did I just say?" Because they know if I am doing anything else other than just sitting there and looking at them and giving them my undivided attention, I'm not truly listening to what they have to say. So even children pick up on this. So there's a lot of truth to this. Have you, when someone wants to have a conversation with you, have you given them your undivided attention? Have you stopped what you were doing or arranged a time where there were no distractions to give someone your attention? Here are two types of listening skills that we can practice to help ourselves be better at active listening. And that is called attentive and reflection listening. So attentive listening involves holding eye contact, maintaining good posture, nodding, mirroring the speaker's body language to show interest, allowing the speaker to complete entire thoughts. What happens when we interrupt others is we are giving them the message that what I am thinking about and trying to say is more important than what you are saying right now. And sometimes we don't realize that that's happening, but that's the message we give. And our body language is very strong and applies a lot. So we also have to be conscious of how we are portraying. Sometimes it can be misinterpreted. I think of when a lot of people like to fold their arms to their side, and to some people that might seem closed off, and to that person, it might mean that they're cold. So sometimes this isn't so easy, but holding eye contact, nodding, mirroring the speaker's body language, letting them finish their sentences. These are all things that we need to be more conscious of and try to practice. And then we can move on to also reflection listening, which this is the part where you're telling that person, I understand, or I don't understand yet, and we need to ask some questions so that I can make sure I'm clearly understanding you. And how you can do that is by repeating and paraphrasing what the speaker has said to you to show that you are truly understanding, you truly understand that what they are telling you, And that gives them an opportunity to say, yes, you're understanding me clearly, or no, let's try this again. But they're going to appreciate that you're taking that time to understand what it is that they are sharing with you. Another question to ask yourself, how have I been listening to others? Have I been taking the time to truly listen and understand? Or am I just hearing them and what they say and not really taking much thought of it? I'm not going to go too deep into setting healthy boundaries because that can be a presentation in of itself. But I felt it was very vital to this process to mention healthy boundaries. When we put in the efforts to establish safety and foster connection by making others feel seen and heard and valued, sometimes because connections take two people, sometimes on the other side, whether it's maybe they're lacking in a skill or they're going through something that they're not able to be receptive of what you're trying to put out there, or they're abusing that, you need to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are based on our values and the things that are important to us. They aren't about trying to control someone or to make them change. If you are wondering about values and you really have not established values for yourself, I highly suggest that you go and research those 5 guiding principles and figure out and learn more about those and how to incorporate those into your life and into your work environment. Again, they are safety, trustworthiness, collaboration, choice, and empowerment. When you're in an office setting and you have those similar values established, and then you set those healthy boundaries, you set yourself up for a lot of success with the relationships with others in the office. Decide what your values are, like I just said. And when others have confronted your values, let them know. And this doesn't mean it's in an aggressive way. It just means in a clear and firm way. You might have to remind them that these are your values and these are your boundaries. And let them know how you would like to be treated. And that goes to that next point. Set boundaries to establish how you want to be treated. And this is the tricky part, because this is where I struggle. And this is, boundaries may need to be repeated. I tend to have that personality that if I told you once, I don't want to have to tell you again. But I've learned that sometimes our boundaries, people need to be gently reminded or firmly reminded that, you know what, that's my boundary and you just stepped over it. And we all need to work on this. And it's a daily effort of constantly reminding ourselves of our boundaries. And when I tend to know that my boundaries, I haven't set clear, healthy boundaries, is I start to become overwhelmed and stressed and worn out. And it's because I have allowed people to abuse my boundaries and my values. And I've learned that when I remind myself of what my values are and what my boundaries are and reestablish that, I'm a much healthier, happier human being, and I can help people better, and I have more energy, and I can think clearer. I hope that makes sense to you. And along the same lines of setting healthy boundaries, when people don't respect those, or when you don't get the reaction that you maybe thought you would get, I have some tips for dealing with that rejection. The first one is a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. And the reason I use this quote is because this is something I tell myself when someone maybe did not directly reject me, but maybe they were not all sunshine and roses to me that day. And that is, you wouldn't worry so much about what others think of you if you realized how seldom they do. What I mean about that is, maybe someone didn't say good morning, or maybe someone was inconsiderate. And what we tend to do is we tend to hold on to that and say, oh, what did we do to that person? And we ruminate on it, and then we create toxic thoughts about it. When I run into those situations, I have to stop myself and remind myself, okay, they could just be having a bad moment or a bad day. They're probably not even thinking about me. And so don't waste my time. And if there is a true problem, they need to come to me and let me know. Okay, so that's one way that I can deal with it. Now, if someone is directly and intentionally showing you rejection, I want to go through these 3 things. Number 1 is acknowledge your emotions. If someone hurt you, acknowledge that you were hurt. If that situation was painful, acknowledge that it was painful. When we suppress and ignore the pain, it prolongs that pain. But when we acknowledge, this is how I feel about this, and we meet it and head on, and we face it, we can then deal with it and move forward a lot quicker. Number 2, refuse to let rejection define you. You have to put this into context. What that person's rejection is their opinion. Do not link that to your identity. Sometimes when someone did something or treated us a certain way, we then start to believe that about ourselves. We have to separate that and remind ourselves that that is one person's opinion, but that doesn't define who I am. And lastly, learn from the rejection. Use this as a chance to build some resiliency and some wisdom and a learning opportunity of what can I learn from this situation, right? Use it as a learning opportunity and take some wisdom from that. Okay, so dealing with rejection, those are some tips. Now, like I mentioned early on in the presentation, Connection is complicated because we are humans and we are complicated. And what I tried to do in this presentation is to really pull some common things that we as humans all have and remind ourselves that all of us desire these things. And so if we are all working towards that, we can really continue to foster those connections. And when we come to conflicts, then we can problem solve and work through it because we've built a good, solid foundation and we're fostering all of these things. Again, key takeaways. Connection is a two-way street. I want to remind you to establish your values and your boundaries. Again, those values that I shared with you earlier are safety, trustworthiness, collaboration, choice, and empowerment. Take the time to figure out what is important to you and set those values and healthy boundaries. Safety. Am I and do I make others feel safe? Maybe if you haven't been doing that, it's time to go back to those building safety points that I put on the slide and ask yourself, how can I start to build safety with others? Connection. Am I and do I make others feel seen, heard, and valued? And lastly, am I coming from a place of observation or judgment? Checking in with ourselves and thinking about our thinking and what we're thinking about it. Sounds a little complicated, but am I noticing and observing the things, or am I coming from a place of judgment? Like I said, there's times where we do need that, but sometimes we abuse that and the situation really needed more of an observation. My hope is that you can take this information and see how you can apply it to your relationships. The relationship I have with my husband is different than the relationship I have with my children, is different than the relationship I have with my siblings and my parents and my coworkers. They're all different. But I think if we really ground ourselves in these things that we all have in common, you will know how to make people feel seen and heard and valued in their own unique way, because our relationships are all unique and different. I want to leave you with this last challenge, and I've been challenging myself to do this as well. And I will tell you what I have learned from doing this is I am a better decision maker. When I don't put so much emphasis on coming from my emotional perspective, but see it from more of a logical and factual and being in the present moment by observing, I am able to make better decisions, clear decisions. I don't forget about my emotions because they tell you something as well, but I don't put so much emphasis on it because sometimes when you do that, it makes everything blurry. So that is my challenge for you, is give yourself 1 hour a day to just observe the things around you. Just observe them. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. And you will start to see that the way that you view things and handle things starts to change a little bit as well. And here are 3 questions. As you know, and maybe you've watched some of my videos before, and maybe some of my coworkers' videos, we will say that this is completely a new way for us to teach. We are typically in the classroom interacting. So doing this through a screen is new, and this is a whole new learning process for us. Feedback is very important to us because we want to serve our community and be very effective. And if you can answer these 3 questions and send them to me in an email, I then can reply with a certificate of completion for your professional development. And those 3 questions are, will you share what you learned? Yes or no? Who will you share with? And what will you share? And my email is right at the bottom. And here is a resource page where I have pulled a lot of my information from. If you are interested in looking at those resources, you can take a picture of that as well. And ADAC has a website, adaconline.org. We have resources for you, resources for wellness purposes, resources for parents, resources for educators, and we also have on there the different programs that we offer. And we also have a Facebook page. You can visit us at ADAC of Delaware C. And I want to thank you for taking the time to walk with me through this journey of fostering a connection. I know it's not always easy, but I think if we really follow those foundational things, we can definitely be pretty confident that we are putting as much effort and energy into fostering connections, and also recognizing that we need to establish values and set healthy boundaries, and also evaluate, you know, how am I handling rejection in my life? Am I letting it fester and ruminate and create toxic things in my life? Or am I meeting them face on and dealing with them so that I can continue to grow and live a healthy, happy life? So again, thank you very much.